There's nothing that I love more than routine and organization. I love structure, and there's a place for everything in my life. Last week, I was on vacation with my sister. We went to an all-inclusive U.S. resort in Tucson, Arizona called Miraval, and it was the perfect relaxing trip. For 6 days, we did yoga in the morning. We ate healthy and delicious foods. It's basically a health and wellness resort, and all we did for 6 days was read a lot of books. And I came back from that trip rejuvenated. We went to the spa every day. We got massages, pedicures. We truly pampered ourselves, and I feel like a changed and better woman. I'm just kidding. I'm still the same. Same me, just more of a relaxed me. I'm ready for the new month. I'm ready for October. However, with vacation, structure seems to find an imbalance. Coming back from vacation, I have hit a lull. I haven't been getting my steps in. I feel like my life is just cluttered at the moment. I need to clean. And of course, it is the last weekend of September. We're almost to a new month. We're almost to October. These last few days have been bleh. And by that I mean that I haven't really felt like doing anything. I have not been checking off things on my to-do list, and I just have been lazy. Vacation's over, and I just need to find that push, and I want to go back to those healthy habits. And I feel like I see this every single month with every reset, but it's so important to me because that's how I feel grounded to myself, and that's how I feel grounded with the world and what's around me. So in this video, we're going to do just that. We're going to talk about my October intentions that I'm setting for myself, whether that be any small or long-lasting goals. We will be reading The Lion Women of Tehran by Marjan Kamali. This is a book that came out last year. I'm buddy reading this with my friend Chelsea. I'm only 20 pages into the story. That's what I'm reading right now, and I hope to give you a better update later. I am going to be starting back up with The Artist's Way. I'm on week 3, which is recovering a sense of power. And I'll talk a little bit more about this week's Artist's Way after I read the chapter. I don't know what we're going to be working on outside of that since I haven't read the chapter. Hopefully this video can be a few days of feeling inspired to get back into your routine and your healthy habits or whatever you're focusing on, since we are at a new month. October is here, and we're here to stay. So after putting it off long enough, I have finished week 3 of The Artist's Way. This chapter is about recovering a sense of power. Morning pages have been going very well. I've found my routine, I've found my structure, I found how I like to start my morning every single day. It's been my sanctuary, as I've mentioned way too many times. I love my morning routine, and when I first started morning pages, I struggled because I realized it was taking away from my reading time. I would wake up early enough where I would have my coffee and read before work, but then I had to add something else into the mix, and I was upset about it at first. I didn't like that because it was messing up with my routine. I've accepted it though, and it's now a part of my morning routine that I enjoy and I love doing. It brings me comfort, and it gets my mind to just release and let go before I get my coffee and I read. This is also really nice because I'm drinking water before I drink my coffee, and I've been trying to do that for years. Who knew all I needed was morning pages and tea? Let's talk about week 3 now. At the beginning of this chapter, Julia Cameron says, this week may find you dealing with unaccustomed bursts of energy and sharp peaks of anger, joy, and grief. You'll be asked to consciously experiment with spiritual open-mindedness. Anything that says spiritual, I'm like, I just shrivel up, and I'm working on that. I am working on the act of spiritualness. Spiritualness? Is that even a word? The idea of letting the universe guide me. We know I've been working on that for the past 2 weeks now. After working on the activities for the week and reading through the chapter and doing my morning pages every day, the biggest roadblock and the biggest emotion that I've felt is anger and sadness mostly. And anger is one of the first things that Julia Cameron talks about. Anger is considered to be a fuel. She says, anger is meant to be listened to. Anger is a voice, a shout, a plea, a demand. Anger is meant to be respected. Why? Because anger is a map. Anger shows us what our boundaries are. Anger shows us where we want to go. This week I've been angry just because life is flying by. It's already October. I feel like all I do is wake up, do my morning pages, read a little bit, go to work, come home, get my steps in, eat dinner, watch maybe an hour of TV, and go to sleep. I feel like I don't have enough time in the day to add more activities, to add more art into my life, and that's really upsetting me. Julia Cameron told us that we need to use anger as a fuel to take actions. We need to move and where our anger points us. For me, as I'm going through this process, I thought that I would be making art all the time, constantly. I thought that I would be spending hours on journaling and finding new ways to be creative, and that's just not feasible for me. I've shifted my perspective and accepted that maybe I'll be junk journaling once a week. Maybe I'll be doing it twice, but to not expect more, especially during the week, that anger has kind of turned into positivity in the sense that I'm not too upset anymore and I'm not forcing myself to create, using anger as a fuel. And we always think of anger as being a negative emotion. It's something that we don't like to feel. However, I like that Julia Cameron is shifting our perspective on anger and she's flipping the script. Anger doesn't have to be negative. Anger can lead to something positive. And I really resonate with that and I love that. And I think that this concept of anger being a non-negative emotion can be applied to not just creating art. It can be applied to anything with life. And anger is not the action itself, it's the action's invitation. When you're angry, rather than that being the action, think about what you can actually do now that you're angry to get out of that emotion and to guide you into moving forward. Loved that concept. Another emotion that I'm working my way through with the Artist Way and also just life in general and with my YouTube channel and Instagram and just kind of being more of a public figure. Who am I? Oh my gosh, I am very embarrassed. See? Shameful. The idea of shame. Julia Cameron says, those of us who get bogged down by fear before action are usually being sabotaged by an older enemy, shame. I constantly tend to shame myself by not thinking something is good enough, by worrying what other people might think, by feeling shameful. I am stopping myself from exposing my art to myself. I'm stopping myself from creating, and that is a problem and a hurdle for me that I'm working on as we go through the Artist's Way. Julia Cameron says, the antidote for shame is self-love and self-praise, and she says to just show up. And it's this idea of using these negative emotions like anger and shame to drive us to do something and take action rather than sitting and wallowing and not doing anything about it. I'm seeing how everything is connected with one another, and this ties back into one of the first chapters of our shadow artist being the artist that we want to be, but there's always something that's stopping us from being that artist and stopping us from creating. And for me, it's that shame and anger that's creeping up that I'm trying to move aside and let myself grow wild. Okay, and I know I talk about how I'm not sure if I believe in the universe and the one and spirituality. I did go see a Reiki human person. Her name is Mother Amelia at Miraval when my sister and I were on vacation at the spa, and she knew nothing about me. And I know that a lot of the questions she asked are just very general, and I'm sure she's just making observations based on my answers. But I feel like she got to my core and my heart. I feel like she was literally telling me what Julia Cameron was telling me. It was wild. It was bizarre. Mother Amelia and I got to talking, and based off of my short responses, she doesn't even know me. I didn't really open up to her too much. Probably should have, but anyway, she told me based on what I was telling her about my life that I need to stop saying I want to and I would like to, and instead I should say I will, I can, and I do. And it's crazy because this week, Julia Cameron, right here, I highlighted it. She says, "It is my experience that I have learned as a rule of thumb never to ask whether you can do something. Say instead that you are doing." How crazy is that? I don't know how Mother Amelia knew, and then Julia Cameron knew that this week that this is what we were going to be talking about. I read that and I was like, Mother Amelia, are you here? Did I bring you back to Kansas? Crazy things. But it's wild that even Mother Amelia told me that I need to accept what is being offered to me. And that's basically what Julia Cameron is also saying. The more I tell you this, I'm like, this is crazy, right? What are the coincidences? What are the odds? And one of the topics this week is synchronicity and serendipitous moments. Shakti Gawain says the universe will reward you for taking risks on your behalf. And yes, maybe going to see a Reiki artist is a risk, but she says life is what you make it. And sometimes you just have to experiment and see what happens. And the idea of serendipity, just knowing that if something good happens or if something in your life happens at the right moment in time, just accept it and move forward. And for some reason, I feel like after talking to Mother Amelia and reading week 3, Recovering a Sense of Power, I feel like things are just aligning and the artist's way is making sense. And I'm accepting it. I'm accepting that this is a thing that's happening. And I don't know if I'm crazy or not, but that's just it. That's just it. It's just wild to me. And then the last thing that I want to talk about that really resonated with me as well is growth. Growth is not linear. And I've known this my entire life. I was pre-med and then I went into marketing and then I planned events for a really long time. And then I somehow got into email marketing. But then I still got my master's in data science and nothing really connects, but I'm still growing. And that goes to say still with creating art, knowing that there's going to be ebbs and flows with growth and creating art, and it's not going to be perfect, and I'm going to have moments of anger and shame, but just to trust the process and know that it's still a part of growth. She says, growth occurs in spurts. You will lie dormant sometimes. Do not be discouraged. Think of it as resting. Those are the things that I learned. The activities are okay. They're not my favorite part. I definitely do enjoy morning pages and reading the chapters. And for this week's artist date, I'm not leaving the house. And I know my whole goal for this whole process is to really hone in on creating memories by junk journaling, scrapbooking, taking art and putting it on paper. So this week, because it aligns with the monthly reset, I'm going to work on an October vision board. It was a good week. It was a great learning experience for me, and I would say that compared to last week, things are clicking a little bit better. And maybe it's Mother Amelia's doing, who knows? Or I've been punked. That could be it too. I thought we could do a reading update of the Lion Women of Tehran. I'm going to put my book down though because I want to be able to drink my coffee while we chat. I am halfway through the book officially, and I have a lot of feelings. I am enjoying it a lot more now than I was at the beginning of the story. I really went into the story not knowing much about it other than the fact that it's a historical fiction and a story based on friendship. This story takes place in 1950s Tehran, and I had to do some research on my own, but the book also helped us finally talk a little bit more about the political turmoil within Tehran during this time period, but let's take a minute and backtrack a bit. This is a story about our two main characters, Ellie and Homa. We read from Ellie's point of view for majority of the story. She is a part of a more wealthy and socioeconomic class in Tehran until her father dies and her mom have to move to a more poor part of the city in Tehran, and that's where she grows up. She ends up going to school, and all she wants is a best friend. She ends up meeting this girl named Homa. Homa is spunky. She's funky. She's funny. She's stubborn. She's goofy. She's everything that I think complements Ellie. Ellie is more reserved. She's smart in her own way, and they hit it off pretty instantly, and they become best friends. While Homa's family is so welcoming of Ellie, Ellie's mother is quite the opposite, and Ellie's mother doesn't want Ellie to hang out with Homa at all. But they persist. This story is about girlhood and woman empowerment. They both decide pretty early on that they are going to be the Lion Women of Tehran. They're going to be strong, independent women who are going to change the world. They're going to do something good with their lives, and they're going to decide on their future. They're not going to let people tell them what to do. And I loved how early on with the story we get the title of the book. I love when that happens. Talking a little bit about the political turmoil during 1950s Tehran. This is a part of time when Tehran is starting to westernize and culture is shifting. During this time, there's also social and religious shifts outside of the norm, especially with westernization. Not only are women able to take professions and get educated, there's also a period where religion is not at the forefront of everyday life. And that also builds some conflict between this idea of westernization. And without spoiling anything in this story, I would say that the story is a lot more about friendship the first half of the story. And I don't normally like coming of age books. The story actually reminded me of My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante, and I ended up DNFing that book. But after reading this story, I know I'm not done yet, but after picking this up, it makes me want to give that book a second chance. About halfway through the book, there's a betrayal that happens unintentionally, and something happens to Homa. And what I really like about Homa as well is that she is very politically active, and they're both very young, they're teens, but Homa stands up for women's rights, and she stands up for being against the coup that occurs in 1953 during this time when they get a new Shah. And so there's a lot more descriptions and details and history that's added into the second half of the book, and I think I would have really liked more of the historical aspect at the very beginning of the book. I can see how the structure would have felt a little bit wobbly if we did that, since this first half was really just setting us up for the second half of the book and setting us up for this political conflict that directly impacts both Homa and Ellie. I want to say this is a heartfelt story about friendship, but also it's just a really depressing story for me. Everything that Homa is dealing with right now, I just am at a loss of words. It's horrifying and horrible. I know that there's light at the end of the tunnel, and Homa is... See, how do I explain things without giving the story up? How do people do it? How does one do it? I am liking the story a lot more. I actually texted Chelsea the other night and I messaged her saying, I'm not liking this book as much as I thought I would. It's really slow for me. And then I read a chapter and I immediately texted her saying, ignore everything that I said to you because I redact my statements. The more I read historical fictions and I read stories that have that political element added to a book, the more I relate to what's happening in my life and in my world around me, and it's so shocking and painful. I'm more sad than I am happy reading this book. Okay, I'm just gonna... I'm gonna finish this book in the next few days and I will give you my final update once I'm done. I'm actually working from home today. I had to go to the doctor to get checked up and I'm all checked up. The gears are turning. I am healthy as can be, so that's great. So the plan is that I am going to finish up work and then I'm gonna work on some vision boards and journal spreads for October, and we will talk about my October intentions. Cheers! My coffee is absolutely divine. It's a beautiful day. I thought I would take us outside to the backyard. I'm in the shade, as you can see, and it's perfect. Molly's eating grass when she shouldn't be. Molly, knock it off. Go get your ball. Go get your ball. And off she goes. Also, my skirt is a skirt, so I have shorts underneath. In this week's chapter of The Artist's Way, one of the key focuses was on growth and how growth isn't linear. There's going to be good days and bad days, and to just take it by stride. And I, this week, was focusing on that aspect of letting creativity come to me and not forcing it. I did make a October spread. It's my vision board. How about I bring you a little bit closer? Come on over. How's this? This might be better. I'm actually really proud of it. The theme for fall and October for me is focusing on comfort. So you'll notice that the colors are more cozy. This is my palette that I would love to incorporate into my fall wardrobe. I'm a big fan of purple these days, as you can see. And a lot of what I have on here is clothing inspiration. So sprinkled in, you'll see a lot of skirts with sweaters. That's what I want to embody this year. Cozy, oversized, yet intentional attires. Maybe skirts with sneakers and skirts with different sweaters, while still adding color to my wardrobe. Right here is a quote that I found to be inspiring. I am the museum of everything I've loved. just a lot of coffee and comfort. One thing that I specifically added is this picture of 2 coffee cups, and they've spilt coffee all over the table. This is a reminder to myself that nothing is going to be perfect, and also tying back to the fact that growth isn't linear. Mistakes are going to happen, ignore the sirens, and it's just a reminder that there's still beauty in messes. And since it's fall, I added a photo of Pooh Bear saying, "In the mood to crunch all the leaves." The leaves have started to wither to the ground, and I love the change of seasons. I love the season and the colors that we get with fall. I'm really just excited to incorporate comfort and coziness into my October with every big and little thing that I do. So that is my little October mood board. I'm not going to say little. This is my beautiful mood board. I'm so proud of it. I did it. It was so much fun. And I need to remind myself of that, letting go of that fear of perfection. And I'm really glad with how this turned out. That is my October mood board, and I'm so proud. Speaking of the Artist's Way, monthly resets and goals, each month I have been trying to come up with a few goals and intentions that I can take into that incoming month. My 2 goals are rollovers from September, one of them being having a low spend month. In September, I did wonderful. I am fabulous. I had a very low spend month, and I'm very proud of myself. I'm trying to build back my savings account. I'm trying to just build back more money into my bank accounts, and I'm trying not to consume things that I don't need. I bought a book here or there, and I'm taking that as a win overall. My expenses have dropped drastically, and I am going to take that into October as well. And then my second goal is to monitor my TikTok usage and decrease doom scrolling. This is going to be the end of me. Looking into next week's The Artist's Way, week 4 focuses on media deprivation and reading deprivation. Technically, the whole point of next week is to not use any form of media and not consume any media. That includes TV, books, social media specifically. I mean, The Artist's Way was created 30 years ago, and we didn't have social media 30 years ago, but now in 2025, that's still bucketed into media, and I'm going to try to do my very best. Not I'm going to try to, I am going to. See? I am going to not use social media for an entire week next week, and I hopefully will take that throughout the rest of the month, and hopefully that'll help me delete TikTok. That's my end goal. I'm trying to get myself to cut back on the TikTok addiction, and we're gonna start with next week, and that's my goal for October. But I want to find other creative outlets outside of TikTok, maybe Substack, Reddit, Pinterest. And then I have 4 intentions. These intentions actually line up with the next few weeks of The Artist's Way. And these 4 actually do start with this week, since we are technically in October. So for week 3, which is this week and focuses on recovering a sense of power, my intention for the month is to allow myself to create without feeling that fear or that judgment. We're talking about emotions this week, whether it be anger, fear, shame, and bleeding that into the next few weeks. I want to make sure that I only bring in those positive and that positive energy. If I do find emotions of anger, I'm going to twist it into a more positive route for my creativity. For next week, which is the media deprivation week, for week 4, my intention for recovering a sense of integrity is to focus on what I want to create rather than what I should create. Just changing my mindset and my perspective. And also, I'm hoping that since I cut down on social media, I'll be able to focus on what I want to do rather than what I should do. And rather than wanting to get on social media, I will want to create something or work on a hobby that I've never done before. And that also leads to aligning with my TikTok usage and the goal that I have of decreasing my social media intake in general. And then for the next week, it would be week 5. It is recover a sense of possibility. My intention for the month is to welcome hobbies that don't give me limits and to experiment creating without any boundaries, without limiting myself. And that kind of ties from the previous week as well. And the intention there is to not set barriers for my creativity and to just make what I want to make with what I have. And I think that's a good way to also let go of that type A personality within me. And that should also hopefully help me kind of color outside of the lines. And then for week 6, the last week of October, I know that chapter is called Recovering a Sense of Abundance, and it focuses on money specifically. I said that my intention is that we often think that we need money to create art or we need money to do something. And I am focusing on a low spend October this month. So my intention is to find fun and creative ways that still give me abundance and they don't break the bank. Those are my 2 goals and 4 intentions that I have for October. We'll see how I do. Looking back to September, I actually did fantastic. Like I mentioned, low spending month, I rocked that. One of my goals was to complete a 10K, and Mark and I did that September 7th, as you saw. And my last goal was to not DNF books, and I did not DNF a single book. I'm so proud of myself. Look at me go. September went by so fast, but it was a good month, and I can't wait to see what October has to offer. Now I'm just going to spend the rest of the afternoon chilling and enjoying this weather. I'm going to try to get Molly to stop eating grass. Molly, knock it off. If you're wondering why I'm wearing the same exact outfit that I wore a few clips ago, don't wonder. I was editing this video, and today I was going to give you my final review of the Lion Women of Tehran, and then I realized that my clip of that Artist's Way week 3 is nowhere to be found. I don't know what happened to it. I remember editing it. It was really cute because Molly was in some of the clips and I can't find it. So I had to refilm it today as if it was a few days ago. So we're just going to pretend like that didn't happen. And now we'll end this video with my final thoughts on the Lion Women of Tehran. It was emotionally, devastatingly good. I don't think I can give it a 5 stars though, because I still can't get over the fact of how the first half of the story went. And like I mentioned, I understand the context and the shift between the first half and the second half, and we needed this first half to be a little bit slower paced, but I don't really like coming of age stories unless it's a horror. I think the author still did a wonderful job explaining the history and the context to a very difficult political situation. The second half of the story is basically a horror of its own. We start the story off in 1950s, and during this time I mentioned that there's a shift in culture and more women are able to do what they want to do, and they're able to get jobs, they're able to do something outside of just getting married and having kids. And then there's a coup and there's a new ruler, and from there's a 180. There's a shift in the political climate for the worse. There are rules and regulations based on how women can dress and how they have to wear a hijab whenever they leave their home, and if they don't, they can get punished by physical abuse and more. They can get imprisoned. The marriage age for children has decreased down to 9 years old. This is real life. This actually happened. Shit like that. And it's terrifying. I see the similarities between what's happening right now in the US and how women are treated. and how time is just rewinding itself, and how the similarities are so comparable to this time period in Tehran. It's so shocking, and it's really sad to see both Homa and Ellie, how much fire they had within them as children, and then this traumatic event happens, and how they're coping and trying to move forward from the situation is heartbreaking. And I just wanted to cry reading from Homa's perspective. Ellie's fine. Ellie's a fine character. I didn't like her actually, and that's also why my rating is a little bit lower. By the end of the story, there's growth between friendship, there's loss, there's love, there's so much courage that happens, that it's just such an empowering story, yet heartbreaking. So read this with care. I am so glad that I read it, and this was a book on my September TBR. I wasn't going to read it until Chelsea reminded me that we were going to buddy read it together. And this was just a few days ago. So I got this done before October. I'm really glad that I had a chance to read a story like this. And I love that I am stepping outside of my comfort zone and usual genres and reading nonfiction and reading historical fictions. There's so much out there, and it was so interesting specifically to read about Iranian history and this perspective, especially since all I've known growing up is the US's side of Iran and the turmoil between US and Iran. So it was really fascinating, and by the end of this book there were tears shed. If there's one thing that I can take away from this book, it's that women are so powerful. Women are lions. We have power. We have power to fight for what's right. We have power to fight for each other, and nothing can stop us. We are so resilient. If you read this book, please message me and let me know your thoughts. It was devastating, and I wish I could tell you what happens in this story, because so much happens in the second half, but I can't and I won't. And with that, I'm going to end this video right here. Thank you so much for coming along and resetting with me and letting me yap about my thoughts on The Artist's Way and Mother Amelia. I hope she's doing well. If you're following along my journey through The Artist's Way, next week should be interesting. It's week 4, and I will be cutting myself off of social media for 7 days, so October 3rd through the 9th. So don't forget to subscribe and follow along. I will see you in another video next week. Have a great day. Bye.